There we go. Now we're live.
Yeah.
Live everywhere. Hello.
What's going on, man?
Oh, all kinds of stuff. You know, I'm getting tired of watching the television or even glancing at television because it's the damn election everywhere,
Oh
man.
my God. Yeah. Yeah, you think?
It's like
Well,
every
we're in election
commercial, and now, like, you know, because the radio gig, now I'm running these commercials
Mhm.
as part of my morning show, and I got to
Yeah.
listen to both sides.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, so let's talk about lying for a second.
Okay.
I believe that lying is so prevalent today,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not going to blame it on technology entirely,
Okay.
but something seem to happen from my viewpoint,
Mm-hmm.
my 58 years, that lying may not be happening, Rocco, at a greater rate. Maybe it's just, believe it or not, I can't believe I'm saying this, maybe it's just more socially acceptable now.
Interesting. I mean, I hate to say you're
It's a
right,
tough
but,
one,
but
man.
no, because I mean, again, I think it has become. Well, I also think that people, you know, like politicians especially, they get so caught up in their own lies they can't distinguish the truth from falsity. Like it's almost like they don't know what is a lie anymore because they've said things so many times they start believing it's the truth. And I think that's the thing I see a lot of as well. I think people just craft and concoct these stories that are told over and over again in different ways on different platforms that it's almost like they convince themselves it happened or they convince themselves it's the truth.
So are we living in multiple realities then?
Yes.
Are everybody's like maneuvering in their life with the reality of what they believe the world is in their head? And that might include like an actual fictitious version of oneself.
Yeah.
Or multiple fictitious versions of oneself, depending on the interaction and where you are.
Mm-hmm. I think people have lost the ability to trust their instincts. I think people have, you know, they don't use their intuition like they did 10, even 20 years ago.
Why is that?
I think because technology, people rely on technology now for everything. I'm not saying they rely on it for intuition, but because they rely on it so much, they don't use their intuition as much anymore. So the things you used to be able to spot quickly because your intuition was finely tuned no longer happens because you're not using your intuition as much as before. I noticed that with myself. You know, I'm usually a very intuitive person. There are things I miss sometimes because I'm either distracted by technology, I'm distracted by what else is going on, even though like my spidey senses tingle a little bit, but I'm not necessarily looking at it until I look. And then when I look, I see it all. But it takes a while for me to get there, not longer than it used to.
Is that because our plates are fuller?
I think our plates are
our
fuller.
minds are fuller.
Our minds are fuller. There's more distractions. I think we don't work the intuition muscle as much as we used to when we were, you know, prior to the amount of technology and information we have coming at us every day. There's a lot of variables to it, but I think I don't want to say lying has become socially acceptable. I think lying has become harder to discern.
Has it become, let me ask you this, has it become, in addition to that, has it become also more tolerated?
Well, yeah, I think that's the case too. I think people, they say, oh, it's just a white lie, it's just a little lie, but a lie is a lie, you know, and it's fine. Like it's
a falsehood.
Yeah. I mean, and again, there's lying and then there's, you know, not disclosing, which are two different things, right? To me, it's like not lying is worse than not disclosing. In my opinion, because lying is like you're asking. No, but I mean,
I get it.
Because if you're asking me a question and I
it.
deceitfully answer it, that's a lie. Yeah. But if you ask me a question and I answer it in a way where I don't disclose certain information, I don't consider that a lie.
That's discernment. That's a decision, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So I think, again, I don't want to subscribe to it being socially acceptable, but I do think there are pieces to what goes on in the world that people have become more accustomed to and are less likely to be upset by it.
Okay, so maybe not socially acceptable. Hopefully it hasn't been, but maybe we are we're living in a reality where we expect it more now, so it becomes ingrained in how we maneuver.
Yeah, I mean, again, I hate to even say that, but I think you're right. I think people do expect. People don't expect. I think the natural reaction is people don't expect the truth in a lot of situations.
I hope that's not right.
I mean, I hope that's the case too, but I think there in a lot of situations,
Mm.
people don't expect to be told the truth.
My
They
father
expect
used
to
to
be told
always,
some version of it.
and my father used to always tell me, and I used to think it was just a terrible way to live, but he would always tell me that he would say, "I always expect to be lied to." Yeah, in business,
Yeah.
whatever.
Mhm.
And I got a good friend of mine now. He always expects to be lied to all the time. But no matter what engagement he's going into, Jim, if you're listening,
Yeah.
it's his phrase. Like, I expect to be lied to. And I guess if I look at that, I take the emotion out of it. I just look at it. It's a tactical decision.
Sure.
But when you add the emotional component, we're emotional beings.
Yeah.
It really is kind of sad in a way. It's like, it goes against that ingrained optimism.
Well, yeah, and that's
right.
Well, and that's why I think I have a hard time. Like, I've never been a believer of I expect to be lied to. Like I've always expected the best out of people, maybe to a fault, right? I expect truth, I expect honesty, I expect authenticity, and just owning it and being accountable. I think if I ever get to a point where I'm saying I expect people to lie to me, then I gotta rethink things because I'm just an optimist. But I also think, again, like if I look at politicians, just a lot of people in general, most people, in my opinion, lie for self-preservation. I don't necessarily think there's an ill intent to it. I think something went sideways and they're lying to cover something or to preserve their power or to preserve something, and then they just go so far deep into it and they don't know how to get out of it. And eventually the house comes crumbling down. Well, right. And that's again, like you look at how many politicians and business people get caught up in these situations, right? It starts with a lie, and then there's a few more, and then what they don't anticipate is the people you're talking to will all talk to one another. And then once that happens, things get exposed. And that's why typically a lot of politicians go down, a lot of business people go down, because they think they're smarter than others. They think, they're above, intellectually above people, and they're not realizing that all it takes is for 2 or 3 people to have a discussion with one another, removing that person, and most shit gets figured out pretty quick.
Well, we should have learned that as kids, right?
Yeah, I mean
that's just playground stuff. That's
right.
Learning your little social order there and how. But maybe that's not happening as kids as much now because we're not engaging. Well, that generations are not engaging in that kind of activity,
right? And I think parents are too involved in kids. Like the kids don't. I think parents have gotten so involved in kids' lives they haven't learned to establish their own social order. The parents kind of tell them what the social order is and what to do. Kids have to learn social order and social dynamics and what the hierarchy is in a group. And you have to understand that. I think kids are getting disserviced by parents, a lot of parents kind of being the helicopter parents and trying to like be involved in everything and talk to other parents about shit. And let the kids sort it out. They're kids. That's how they learn. That's how they learn social behaviors, by letting them do it, letting them have the discussions, fight it out and figure it out.
Absolutely.
And that's just not happening as much anymore. And again, lying is one of those things where it eventually all comes to the surface. It's just a matter of time. And if you don't understand that, you don't really understand the world. And that's why I think, again, most politicians get found out eventually with the bullshit. It's variables of time is what it takes.
Okay, so talk about getting found out. There used to be a lot of weight. Let's take politicians in general. They lie about something of consequence, and there's usually a punishment for that. They usually lose or they get banished from politics. Now it's like we have a president right now who, if you take away the mental issues, go back 20 years in his career, he has said so many falsehoods that have been proven out through video, and he's said so many really abrasive and I guess in this society considered offensive things, but there really doesn't seem to be consequences. So it's really interesting. Like that, are consequences really there for lying anymore, especially in the political sphere?
It depends on who, right? The political sphere, put anyone but Trump in that other side, he wouldn't have won. Like, it was not a vote for Biden, in my opinion. It was a vote against Trump.
For sure.
And I think a lot of politicians will get exposed if they get that, like, or we wouldn't tolerate that. They only tolerated his bullshit because of who he was running against. That's what I think. Because I think again, like,
there's some really salty stuff in his.
There's a lot of salty stuff.
Going back to the 80s and early 90s.
Yeah.
He has said some really outrageous stuff, and he has lied about his education and with some exchanges with the public and just some really odd stuff.
Yeah.
Yet here we are.
Yeah. I mean, again, like, I don't think it was a vote for him. It was a vote against somebody else. And that's the only reason why he's in office. Truly. Like, I don't think, again, if you have any other Republican candidate up there, like, he probably wouldn't have won. It was just, we can't let Trump win. Someone has to. And he was the safe bet. He wasn't going to rock the cradle.
So when you unwind the idea of lying again, like, what do you think is wrong with reality? Like, why does a good portion of the population, and I've thought this for such a long time, there seems to be, to me, a portion of society, and they've always been there, that their reality as they see it, their life, how they interact, where, their sphere, it's never enough. It's like, that is not good enough. It's not exciting enough, or it's not interesting enough. So it needs to be added on. Fantasy needs to be combined with this. Now, all of our great works of fiction have an element of that in it. So are those great fiction writers also, maybe some of them, potential liars as well too? It's a really interesting dynamic when you look, and labeling anyone's tough, but I'm saying the idea of lying is pretty subjective.
Yeah, again, it is subjective, right? Because, it may be your perspective. And is your perspective a lie?
Like George Costanza saying in Seinfeld, remember, it's not a lie if you believe it.
Well, but that's part of it. So there is that part, right? There is a subjectivity to it, right? If it's based upon a perception of yours and you believe it, then is it a lie? To me, lying is taking objective facts and misconstruing it, misstating it, or just completely making up something else. Like, making up facts or taking something factual. Like, if I said to you, Eric, I think you have on a purple shirt, and then someone says, well, he was telling him he had on a blue shirt. That's a lie.
Right.
I didn't say the word blue. I said purple.
Yeah.
Now, if I said, hey, Eric, I like your shirt, and someone said, I don't really think he likes his shirt, that's their perspective of the way I said something.
Correct.
That's not necessarily a lie. That's just their opinion.
Interpretation.
Yeah, it's an interpretation, but it's to me, it's objectiveness. Like,
okay,
that's where I think people get caught up in.
Yeah, it's like, this goes back to something really rock related, rock and roll related. But when I was a kid, I watched an interview, it was a rock and roll interview on MTV or something like that. And it was the guys in Kiss. It was Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley. Yep. And Paul Stanley was chiding Gene Simmons because Gene, when he would speak to the public, everything is bigger and grandiose, and everything is there's a level of bullshit or exaggeration with everything. And Paul turned to him in the interview and he goes, isn't reality just good enough for you? What's wrong with reality? Like, making this point, you have an amazing life, right? Why is the reality just not good enough? You have to take it to extremes that are not real. It's always stuck in my mind. And granted, it was a rock and roll interview, but there was a point there. And I look back now where, is that part of it today? Are we just looking at our circumstances and wishing for different things, and then in our minds creating a fabrication to, like, try to sell some of this to whoever?
That's a good question. I don't know, because I think people, politicians, business people can lie for so many different reasons, right? I think
About the average guy, like it's just like the average people, collection of just average people, and the ones that decide to lie. Why do you think they do? About their circumstances, their jobs.
Well, insecurities, right? That's
Uh-huh.
a big thing. I think they're lying because they're insecure
For
about something,
sure,
right?
for sure.
Covering up something,
Okay.
right? Like they've done something wrong and they're covering it up, or they don't want to be found out, so they're covering up, or just to create distractions. Because if you are in a social circle, right, and you tell a bunch of lies to a bunch of different people to get them all kind of thinking differently about certain things or certain situations or certain people, you're causing a distraction. Then you can kind of fly under the radar and do what you want in that social
That's
circle.
very manipulative.
But yeah, I mean, a lot of lying is manipulative, right? It's especially when you're doing it in a way to change a person's viewpoint of something or someone. Like you're not trying to manipulate their perception.
You're right. You're trying to seek a gain based upon deception.
Yeah, exactly. And that never works out. I mean, again,
long term.
No, I mean, I've dealt with so many people over the years where, from when I was a kid to corporate America, where like people think that gets them somewhere, but eventually, like you get caught.
Yeah.
You're not as smart as you think you are in those situations. I mean,
correct.
There were a lot of executives I dealt with back in the day that kind of got themselves in pickles because they just thought they were smarter than everybody. And it's like eventually someone will find out. Eventually, there's always someone there flying under the radar that no one suspects knows what's going on, but knows it all, and is just waiting for the right moment to expose.
Well, being a liar in an organization is a different animal compared to being, let's say, a liar of your own parade. Like if you are a solo business person or your own entity, and the lying there is more to the public. But when you lie within an organization, it's just a different maneuver, but it's just a very socially dangerous thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, think about any social circle, any friend circle, right? You have there's the one friend that lies to people, assuming that these people, if I'm a group of dudes and we're talking about something and there's one person in that group and they're pitting people against one another, thinking they're never going to talk. I'm just going to piss these people off so much they'll never talk to each other, so I can kind of do what I want.
Yeah,
but eventually people sniff that out in social circles from when they're like elementary school up to adults. I've watched it happen. Like eventually it comes to the surface because it always comes to the surface from the person you least expect. Like I've watched things over my life where you watch people that are good liars and good manipulators get into, like, even politicians, right? Like think about politicians that get exposed. They get exposed by the most unlikely person. The person they weren't even thinking about. The person's right under their nose, flying under the radar, that they just think they're smarter than everybody. Then all of a sudden that one person that worked for them closely for, 3 years when they were a junior senator or a junior congressman and exposed all the lies because they didn't expect that person. Like that's what people don't get. Like they're, the quietest one is usually the one that knows it all.
Well, what's that gangster motto is like, if you're going to make a deal with someone, you make it with one person because you got a chance to take that to the grave. You both have a chance.
Yep.
But when you bring that third element in, you bring that third person in.
Yep.
Heaven forbid there's more than three, but you bring that third one. The chance of everything going south is exponentially greater.
Absolutely. 100%. 100%. You had any different variable into that mix. It can, there's always a loose link somewhere. There always is.
Yeah. I just, when you think about truth versus a lie.
Yeah.
The truth always, almost like natural law, almost like science, right? It's undefeated. It's like it always will rise above the fabrication.
Absolutely.
In society, it just pushes its way to the top.
Yeah, it does.
All the time.
Right. Life is easier to navigate too when you're just truthful. Like, because you don't have to remember shit. It just is. Like
A lot
I don't
easier.
lie about stuff because I don't have to remember what I lied about. If
Oh,
I
you
just
cut down your complexity immediately.
you do like if I just that's why I just speak truthfully about things because I don't have to remember shit. Like I know what I know. Like I'm
Mhm.
not gonna make up a crazy ass story from like when I was younger or from childhood that I gotta remember to tell again. Like no.
Do you think, and you and I are not these people. We're
Mhm.
not authors of fiction and great storytellers, and we haven't done that as for a career. But do you think, like, when you look at the great fiction writers, even the current day
Mhm.
ones, the ones that sell millions of books and have written these legendary yarns and all
Mhm.
that, do you think if you were to do deep dives on some of these people into their own personal lives, do you think that you think there's a lot of liars in there? Do you think it translates that work of fiction, that work of fabrication, that creativity, that alternate universe or that alternate
Mhm.
reality they have spun to be able to do it so well? Do you think they've brought that into their personal life too?
I don't think so. 'Cause I don't think a good fiction writer is a liar. I think a good fiction writer is creative.
I get that, but I
You
just
know,
wonder if
I
if you
don't
become
think
so good at it at an alternate reality.
no, I don't think so. I think again, like I've met fiction writers, I've talked to them. I think that they are very sharp people and they're not, they're writing fiction. Like that's what they do. They're creative. They're
Mhm.
not looking at it from a lying standpoint or a manipulative standpoint. I don't think it carries over into real life. I've never experienced it with people I've dealt with that are authors,
Yeah.
at least that I can tell. I think they're just very creative people. They can come up with stories because they just have a creative brain. Just like a painter, they can paint something out of thin air. They just visualize in their head. Like a fiction writer can just see or hear the story. All right, they're just putting it on paper. You
Right.
know,
Right. And there's a part of me though that looks at humanity that we have this desire to be entertained
Mhm.
by fiction. We have a desire to
Yeah.
watch actors portray somebody else. Like that element of make believe.
Well, think about it though. You can pack, a year's worth of adventure into a 90-minute movie
Mm-hmm.
and appease someone's curiosity. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's really what it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's truly that's what entertainment is. It's about appeasing our curiosity in a shortened window. I mean, think about how just our attention span is shorter now. Like when I was growing up, most movies were like 2 to 2.5 hours.
Exactly
Now
right.
they're 120 to 100.
That's
They're like
exactly right.
or an hour and 20 to an hour and 30 minutes. It's the average movie now,
Max.
max. That means our attention span has shortened for a movie by about 45 minutes
Right.
in my lifetime. Like think about 40 years from now. It'll be like instant movies. A 30-second transcript of the movie. Oh, know what it's about.
So my wife loves Law and Order
Mhm.
and all those shows, and I just never really held a great interest for me. But once in a while, I'll sit down and watch one.
Okay.
And I was just amazed at like how well done it's done. Well, it's polished, and
Mhm.
the acting is surprisingly good for television. I'll
Mhm.
give it all that. But they have this very complex case. They start out
Mhm.
at the top of the hour, and by the end of the hour, minus the commercials, maybe a total of 38 total minutes there, they have solved in a very brisk fashion all of these different elements and put them all together and create a story. And then the bad guy got his just desserts
Mhm.
at the end. And it's like a lot of it rings hollow to me though when you and maybe I'm being too critical, but when I step back from it and look at it, from afar,
Mhm.
it's so not reality.
No.
Do you know what I mean? In a way, like it
But
just
are you
we
expecting it
don't we
to be
don't li- we
reality?
don't live that fast.
Well, remember there's editing.
Oh, naturally, but
But that's the thing. I think again, like if people think that's how fast they solve crime, then they're fucking crazy.
okay,
Like
you
it's
don't
really
you
it's
don't
really
you
about
don't
just
you
editing.
don't you don't think that television has skewed generations into thinking that things are in society are a certain way, and then they go out in the world, they find out they're not.
Well, again, I think
Maybe.
no, I think yes. Do they try and do that? Yes. I think if you fall for that, then that's on you. Like do your own research, do your own due diligence, like understand how the world works. Don't assume everything you see in a movie or on TV or here is the truth or is how it works. Like I was saying about the law, right? Like every legal show, like good shows, that's not how it fucking works. There's not been one time in my career where I've had like the smoking, like the show Suits, right? They do a lot of like litigation. They do a lot of corporate stuff. Like and I do corporate stuff. And there's always some smoking gun in the corporate documents. I've been practicing law 21 years now, 22 years. I've never found a smoking gun in corporate documents. Like never been like, oh, this says it all. They're done. Like that's not how it works. It's not. So TV is an element of entertainment.
Yes.
You know, and if people think it's reality, but I think the lines got blurred when we created reality TV.
Yes.
Because reality TV isn't reality.
Yes.
But it's portrayed to be reality. So now people are like, well, that's reality. I'm like, no, it's actually not reality. It's all scripted reality. Like I've worked with reality show actors and actresses. It's scripted. It's not, it's like they have contracts to say, we can make you whoever we want to be. We can make your character be good or evil, and you can't do shit about it. We're just gonna pay you a bunch of money. They're like, yeah, okay.
Well, it's really like studio wrestling.
That's exactly what it is. I mean, that's really what it is. But at least you know that's what wrestling is. Like you know wrestling,
and you make a decision whether to buy into the fantasy or not.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I think that's the purity of wrestling, right? Because you just know it's fake. There's no question to it. Like I was watching Joe Rogan's podcast here that Rick Rubin on, and he was literally talking about pro wrestling, and he's like, I love it because that's what I think. I don't know if he used the word pure or something, but he's like, you just know what it is. There's no question.
Yeah, you're not uncertain.
There's a certainty to it. There's a complete certainty to it, and you don't find that much in life.
That's true.
Like, but that is a certainty.
Yeah, that's very true. I think people that try to bash it for not being quote unquote real miss the whole point. I mean, it's not trying to be.
I mean, they're athletic as shit.
They're putting on a show.
Yeah, it's entertainment. It's entertainment. And again, I think, you know, coming back to like lying and deceit, like I think maybe people are trying to create their own entertainment, create own versions of the reality by lying or trying to force themselves to believe something or bring people into, you know, if they're miserable, they want other people to be miserable with them. Like there's a lot of things. There's a lot of variables to this, I think.
Are we sometimes yearning to be lied to?
I fucking hope not. What do you mean by that? Elaborate more.
Okay. It's a real gray area because you could lean on the concept of interpretation. Which take Fox and CNN.
Okay.
We're all supposedly in the same reality, maneuvering. Fox version of events that happen for event A, CNN's versions for event A, and how they send it out into the earth, how it's being worded, how it's being manipulated, could be two different stories there.
Absolutely.
And we probably choose the one that makes us feel better, or like you said prior, reaffirm our belief structure.
Yeah, I think most people,
even though maybe we know where that's happening.
Oh yeah, I think again, people typically believe when there's two interpretations of a factual event. I think people believe the one that, you know, reinforces their own beliefs. I think a lot of people just don't do the thinking. Like I always say, look, you know, Fox leans right, and you know, CNN and MSNBC lean left. Take the facts and make your own determination. Like believe. I'm fine with anybody believing what they want to believe, so long as they've deduced it from their own reasoning. Like you look at like take the Trump assassination attempt, the first one, right? There's so many facts that we've been told, but it's being spun two different ways. He set it up himself. It was a plot to kill him. There's so many different things, but it's like
a piece of glass shard.
It was like shrapnel. It's like, no, it's not shrapnel. Like again, but people may have done their own research and believe that yes, that's what it was. Like I believe it was truly an attempt, but that's my belief based upon what I've looked at. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying that's my belief. We're all entitled to them.
Right.
I just have a problem when people take something from the show that reinforces their side of the argument and just pass it off as their own belief. Like, tell me how you got there. Like, tell me what you thought there, not what Fox said or not what CNN said. What did you, Eric, think about this situation? Tell me how you got to the conclusion that yes, this was an assassination attempt. What was the conclusion? That's the question I would ask. Not what I've heard in the news, not what I've heard on Fox, not what I've heard on CNN. I want to know what you came up with based upon the information you looked at.
So how does that tie into what I'm going to suggest is a very negative opinion of the word indifference? How does our willingness to be lied to to make us feel better, how has that become so popular with people, as opposed to standing back and maybe coming to the conclusion that they either don't know or they don't care enough to voice an opinion? Like, why is it we would actually rather be lied to, I think, sometimes than to not express an opinion? Like, we feel compelled to have an opinion on everything.
Well, so I think a lot of people do, right? I think you and I have both become very comfortable with indifference.
Certainly.
And I think the people
freeing.
Yes, but I think the people that get pissed at people that aren't, like you said, the people get angry about the indifference, I think it's because they're insecure in their own positioning and their own thinking, that the fact that I am indifferent to it means I don't believe them or support them.
So it's a threat.
It's a threat. That's how I look at it, right? Because the only time I've ever experienced someone kind of debating or arguing with me about my own indifference to a fact was someone that I knew was just an insecure person. Like, at their core, they were insecure. So because they were trying to set forth this argument in this position, I'm like, I don't want to give a shit. Well, how can you not give a shit? Like, I put all this thought into this. Like, you have to validate my thinking.
That's most society.
But think about it though. But like other people that, like, I have strong opinions on something, right? If you're indifferent, okay, cool. Like, I know my opinions. Like, I don't need you to validate them because I've done my own thinking.
1,000,000%.
I think it's the people that try and pass off, like, what they hear on news outlets or, radio or TV as their own original thought. And then when someone's indifferent to that thought or that opinion, it's like, you can't do that. Like, how can you? I've made this, I perpetuated this lie that I have this original thought about climate change, and I believe in it. It's like, okay, well, and I've asked people, what is climate change? Well, it's bad. It's like, what does it mean?
It's bad.
But I mean, I've had these legitimate discussions with people on this topic, and no one can articulate that has a strong opinion about climate change, what it actually is. Like, what's changing the climate and what is the impact of, the glaciers will melt. Okay, what does that do? What happens? Okay, the ice melts. Then what happens? We all drowned? I don't know. You tell me. Like, you have the, I've literally had these, I'm not joking. Like, I'm not being facetious. I've had these discussions with people just because I'm a curious person. And if you tell me you are a climate activist, I don't really, that's just not my thing. I don't know enough about it. So I'm like, I'm indifferent to, well, how can you be indifferent? I'm like, okay, well, convince me. What is climate change? Well, how could you not know? I'm not asking.
That's the twist.
That's the twist.
That's
right.
the
Right.
twist.
And it's like, so then
turn it back on
it's
them.
a deflection. It's like,
Yes.
well, how can you not know? How can you not know? I'm literally asking you, what is climate change? Explain to me the basic fundamental third grade definition of what is climate change and why should I be concerned with it? And people lose their mind. And that's how I know I'm in a sham argument. And I move on.
Well, there's probably so much of that just sitting out in society right now.
Oh, and it's
Needing
so easy to spot.
expose.
It's so easy to spot. The moment a person gets a little bit irritated at a question or someone's indifference, that's when I press harder. Because I know I poked something. I know I triggered something. There's something behind that. And and again, like, maybe I don't know if it's wrong that I do that, but I want to get to the answer. I want to get to what's underlying it. Just tell me you don't have a fucking clue what you're talking about. I'm like, cool, neither do I. Let's go grab a beer.
Yeah, I would rather somebody say to me that if I ask them why they believe in climate change or why they believe in fracking or whatever, I'd rather have them say to me, instead of make some bullshit up or speak on something that's so obviously over their head, or they haven't researched it or whatever. I'd rather have them say, I don't know, it just feels like the right thing to do.
I'd be fine with that.
Yeah, I mean,
Totally fine with that.
Yeah, I mean, at least that's honest, right?
Yeah. Or to say, you know what, this is what I've heard from what I watched.
And it just feels like the right thing to believe in.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay, cool. Like, I'm that's awesome. Like, you know, I'm just not someone that thinks that way, but I applaud you for thinking that way and being honest about it. Because I feel like that's really what most people think on that topic alone, right?
Of course,
it's just the right thing to do. Like, let's take care of the client. Okay, I get that. Sure. Like, I don't want to.
They associate. You're right. They associate the green initiative, the green way of living, with taking a wrapper. Taking a food wrapper and throwing it on the ground. We know that. Most normal people know. That's not good for anybody. You've either been told that by your parents or your teachers. We know that overall, long-term, not good for the society. So they conflate that act that they know triggers, like, that's bad, it's polluting, or that's like, you know, and they'll swell that all the way up to the environment.
Right.
I'm polluting the environment.
How?
Right,
exactly. Yes,
the ozone layer is now depleted because I'm killing the environment. Or it's like, it's literally, it's whatever our minds can conflate, and then the mishmash of different opinions and movements all mashed together.
Well, do you remember the 90s when it was like, oh, if you use hairspray, you were like destroying the ozone
layer? Most
layer.
Definitely.
I'm like, what does that even mean?
Aerosol.
I'm like, okay, but how? I'm like, please explain to me how. Like, I don't know. Like, does the aerosol gas out of this hairspray can fly up in the ozone and destroy the ozone layer? So now we're all going to burn because the sun's really strong now? Like, I don't understand.
Oh, it changed all kinds of products. People, products that removed aerosol, and they had pumps. It was the pump instead of spray.
Yeah.
You know?
Now they still make aerosol. They still make it. So how bad was it?
I don't know.
Because to me, like, that's where I have the issue, right? It's like, we talk about climate change, we talk about these things. And it's like, okay, we do a little bit, but if we know, if we truly knew aerosol was a major problem for the climate, right? Like, truly, like, aerosol will fuck up the ozone layer. Like, we should just get rid of it. This was what, in the 90s when I was in high school, right?
It was the 80s, actually.
Well, but I remember in the 90s when I was in high school, right? So that's kind of when I remember. That's my recollection. That's 30 some years ago, right? How do we still have aerosol now? Did we learn something new? Or are we just bullshitting back then because that was a popular thing to do? That's the problem I have with a lot of stuff, right? We say, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad. And why is it still here? Like, smoking. We know smoking is bad. It's not good for you. But because the lobbyists and the politicians and all the money in it, it's still here.
Yeah. And how many products are made with lead in this country? Lead was supposed to have medicinal benefits at one point in time in our history.
Yeah. Red dye number 5. Like, no other country has it. Like, we do. Why? Like why? Like, again, like, I'm not one of these, like, people, like, I'll eat shit with red dye. Like, I eat ketchup and get red Gatorade. It doesn't bother me, but I'm like, it's supposedly bad. No other country in the world allows it, but we do. Why?
Yeah.
There's money in it.
For sure. Yeah, see, that quite frankly is the whole electric car debate. It's like, you know, where, you know, there's a portion of society that'll tell you the electric cars are, we must do everything we can to go to electric cars because we're us burning fossil fuels and all this. Okay, the average person hears that, Rocco, they go, yeah, okay, I can see, you know, I can see some of that.
Sure.
But then you start unwinding. You hate, you know, you do that next question. You know, okay, so how are these electric cars running? Oh, they run on batteries. What are those batteries made of? Oh, they're made out of ore, very specialized and rare ore.
Yeah.
And how do you extract that ore? Oh, from the ground.
Yeah.
Oh, and how do you get it out of the ground? Oh, you strip mine it.
Yeah.
You dig big holes in the earth, and then where is it? Where is it? Oh, it's in other countries.
Yeah.
Oh, and they don't have the same child labor laws that we do.
Right.
Isn't that interesting? How you keep asking the next question?
Yeah. It's not really green. It's not. There's.
Well, by the definition of what they want us to think green is.
Yeah. But I mean, think about going back over there. Like, okay, you're in these strip mines run by gas-powered vehicles that are doing the mining. There's not electric vehicles doing the mining, so you're not eliminating fossil fuel from the supply chain, right? You're eliminating it from the end product potentially, But if you're using it all the way up, like, is it really doing anything? Because you're using it in the production of the product, but the end product doesn't have it. Okay, cool, but it's not used anywhere else.
Only in America.
Mm-hmm.
Only in America can we make our elite feel less guilty about killing the planet by letting them buy carbon offset.
Yeah. I mean,
attaching a value
yeah,
to a currency.
That's a whole interesting
to make them feel better.
That's a whole interesting discussion because we've done some work in that. And it's really, I don't know enough yet about it to have an intellectual discussion, but it's definitely, there's more to it than that, which I've learned, and there's a lot. It's interesting how
you buy forests and all that stuff. I get it.
It's just interesting how it works. But I mean, again, it comes down to,
is it more about feelings or is there a factual benefit?
I think there's a factual benefit to it. I think there are some benefits to it. Again, I don't know enough about this here and talk intelligently. Just the initial stuff I've read, I'm like, this is interesting. I need to learn more about it. It piqued my interest because there was something to it. But yeah, I mean, again, I always come back to when people talk about stuff like being bad. It's like, well, why do we still sell it? Why, if we know it's bad and we have the power to regulate things, why do we still do it? Because all about
alcohol in this culture.
But if you think about it, I mean, think about lying and deceit. It all stems from some sort of either power or money. Like, that's it. And the same thing with the shit we're talking about now, right? We still sell this stuff because we make money from it. And then you have like the FDA banning like there's peptides, right? Which are like there's this new, but they're banning all these ones that have been proven to help heal joints, like tendons, ligaments. They're banning them because you can't make any money off of them. No one's lobbying for them. They're very cheap to make.
Exactly right.
And now I don't need Advil. I don't have to buy Advil. If my joints are healed, I don't need Advil. Pharmaceutical companies sell the Advil. So like, well, no, we got to ban this because
you watch that Rogan episode too. Huh?
I didn't even watch. I don't even know who was that.
The name escapes me. It's a recent episode. I'll
have to check it out but again, like I've watched these peptides because I've used some of them in the past. They're truly beneficial. Like, they help like heal injuries. Like, they're good. Then the FDA bans them. Like, oh, they work too well and they're too cheap. We're just gonna get rid of them.
No, it's gonna affect the drug industry.
Well, right. That's the problem. And it's just like there's two. And that's the deceit. Like, I'd rather you say we're banning them, not because we don't know if they're safe or not. We're banning them because people gave us money to ban them.
Yeah. It goes back to that lying versus honesty.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, you may thoroughly disagree that that's a good thing to do, but at least they're telling it to you straight.
Yeah. And that's what people don't understand. Like, shoot straight with people in life. Life gets very easy to navigate, and you tend to get what you want in life. But when you start down a road of deceit or, just doing something like in the shadows or in the background that you shouldn't be doing, it eventually comes to light. Light always shines out the darkness.
Yeah, it's physics, man.
It is. And but people don't get that. And it's just
the law of truth. It always
it rises to the surface.
Almost like a natural law.
It does. I mean, just take the 2020 election, right? All the shit came out. It just took time. It eventually rises to the top. The truth rises.
And I
to the top.
think that this pandemic, all the truth will eventually come out there too. It just takes time.
100%. Like, it does. You can't hide the truth forever because eventually there's smart people that figure it out, start putting the pieces together and asking the right questions. That's what really happens. And I think that's the problem we have in society right now. We just assume. I think the people that lie assume. Take politicians. They assume the populace is stupid. They assume the populace isn't going to do the hard work of asking the hard questions and pressing until they get the answer. So I can just tell you what I want to tell you. I mean, look at the fucking debate. Like, let's be real. Like, that was a train wreck, a complete train on both sides of it, right? On both sides of it. Now, it's frustrating. Yes, there was only fact checking on one side of it, but if I heard dreams and aspirations and ambitions one more time, I was like, and I'm thinking to myself, I would have rather her said, I don't have a fucking clue. I don't have my policies figured out yet. I just want to help the American people. I'd be rather you say that than some long, drawn out circular answer with 3 buzzwords you've been told to use over and over and over again.
Couldn't agree more.
Like, over and over again, like ad nauseum. That's all. Anytime she speaks, that's all you hear. Ambitions and aspirations and hope and dreams. I'm going to help. Did you see that Oprah interview?
Yeah, I couldn't sit through the whole thing.
Well, they asked her about how she's going to lower food costs. And she's like, hopes, ambitions, and aspirations. And I saw someone on the internet cut up her and Trump answering the same question. He's going to start with energy. He's like, everything based off energy. Lower the energy costs, lower food costs. Right. She's like, I was born
in the middle class
town. And I feel your hopes. And you even saw Oprah's face. Like, what is she talking about? Again, like, I'm not meaning to bash anyone. It's just,
it's pretty apparent that, I mean, if you take Trump's personality out of it, I mean, if he wasn't the Trump personality, and you just look at it based upon philosophy and like, it's a slam dunk. 85% of the public votes for him.
Yeah,
but you put the coarse Trump personality there.
Yeah,
it's so polarizing. Unfortunately, that's just that you can have an empty suit compete against him.
Yeah,
you see what I mean?
Well, yeah. And and during the debate, she baited him into doing what exactly he shouldn't have done, attacking. Like, she just kept baiting him, right, and he walked right into it. And that was
doesn't care.
He doesn't care, no. But it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out, because it's
just so sad though. This is like we are sitting here talking about two. It's like it's the number one job on the face of the planet, not just for our country, for the face of the planet, the United States presidency. And we have two people that of not the highest caliber.
No,
I'll leave it at that. I'll leave the word character out of there. Not the highest caliber.
No, we don't. It's ridiculous. Yeah, it's ridiculous. That's where we are, dude. That's where we are. This is where we are. I mean, we're like a month and a couple weeks away. Like,
I think 42 days. Or
so 6 weeks,
7
weeks, 6 weeks away from the election. 6 weeks until we see what happens.
We are living in such strange times. I was driving back from the radio station this morning, and they were talking about mail-in balloting, and just talking about it as if this is our new reality. And voting was a American event.
Yeah.
We had election day. There was a provision for our military, for people that were invalids, people that were sick, even for people who were traveling and not going to be around. They could go through a process, but it was the exception. It wasn't the rule.
Right. Now it's the rule.
And we want now more than anything for these elections to be above reproach. But yet we add the complexity and the grayness of mail-in paper ballots.
No shit.
And we expect that to somehow be, I don't know, more true than in-person voting. Yeah. Are we out of our fucking minds?
I always
really
no, but I always go back to, I think this was again after the 2020 election. There was like someone posted on the internet said, if you believe the mail is safe, mail yourself $1,000 cash. If you're not willing to send yourself in the postal service $1,000 of cash, you don't believe mail-in ballots are safe. And I'm like, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't send myself $1,000 in cash, because I know there's plenty of shit that's got lost in the mail.
It's a funny story. I had a guy one time buy a guitar off me back in, first or second year I was in business. eBay was young. It was year 2000, maybe.
Okay.
This crazy bastard sent me the $5,200 in a FedEx envelope overnight.
Yeah,
not a certified check. He sent me cash. I thought I was getting a certified check. I opened that up and I saw that cash. I just couldn't. I called him up like, "Are you out of your mind?
Yeah.
You got it right." I'm like, "Yeah, I got it. I'm holding it. Great." But
yeah, it's crazy.
Mind numbing to me.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. People do that shit.
I guess drug dealers do.
FedEx you can at least trust. I feel like FedEx you can trust. The Postal Service,
he did.
I mean, the Postal Service. I mean, again, like if you think mail-in ballots are safe, like I said, like that's
a great reply.
Like, send yourself $1,000 in the mail to yourself and see what happens.
I think I want to pass on that.
Yeah, I'm gonna pass on that too, my friend.
All right, partner. Until next week.
Yeah, definitely.
And we're getting close on this election too. This is gonna be batshit crazy.
It's gonna be wild, man. Wild.
It's gonna be wild.
See what happens.
All right. We're out. See you next week.
It is.